Hey everybody, it's Sophie and Marco, Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to finish my Simpsons Treehouse of Horror rankings. For starters, I was doing a recording of this video, and someone actually called me this person hasn't talked to me since April. So they called me in the middle of it. So this is a redo of this video. It was like the last thing I would have ever expected to happen. You know what I mean? Like, it was so, like, out of nowhere. And so, yeah. Anyways, Treehouse of Horror, I gotta say, it started off as, like, a really good thing for The Simpsons. And I felt like, even if you don't like The Simpsons or you're kind of like lukewarm on them, Treehouse of Horror is like something that stands out. Something that is almost better than like The Simpsons, because it's like every year you get a new horror episode with different segments, and it should be like a really fun thing. Really creative, bloody, gory, scary, smart. Unfortunately, over time, I wouldn't say that they overstayed their welcome. I would just say that the writers started to suck, because there came a certain point, it was very depressing. There came a certain point where the writers completely gave up, and they started making these sanitized, lame episodes. And it was really, really, like, heartbreaking at first. And then they bounced back, and then they went back to being trash. It was really disappointing. So, yeah. It's just been bad ever since, basically. There's been very few exceptions. I think another issue is how many non-horror segments there are. Like, even though, like, there might be 1 out of 3 in a year, that's 1 out of 3 too many. I don't watch The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror to see a musical. I don't watch it to see a James Bond story. I really feel like it's so disappointing to me, because there's so many movies and shows that come out that feel like they should be easy home runs. And this is definitely one of them. I think that the downfall started as soon as they stopped doing the parodying at the beginning of the segments. You know, the introductions where the Bart or Lisa or Marge would say, like, "Hello, everybody. This is the Treehouse of Horror show. It's going to be really scary, blah, blah, blah." I think that that's when the series started going downhill, these episodes. When they stopped doing those, I don't know what they call them. They call them like wraparounds. Those really like completed the episodes for me, and they really made the show feel like something special. And as soon as they got rid of that, and it just became this kind of like, oh, we're going to do like a gimmick opening where we parody The Omen, and then they all get impaled with crosses that end up looking like the number for Treehouse of Horror episodes, and it's like, fuck off. So, but this video, we will be going through the A and S tier. Let's get started. First off, we have Bram Stoker's Dracula, the parody. At first, I didn't really like this that much. But then, with my second viewing, I ended up actually really liking this. I think it's a lot of fun. I think that it's cute, it's funny, it's clever, it's a good parody, and it's something to where it's like, it's not just a parody, it's really funny. It's got a lot of gags in it, it's got a lot of great ideas, and it ends up being a better movie than the actual movie that it's parodying. Next up is E.T. Go Home. This one's the episode that a lot of people don't like. a lot of, to be fair, it is like a sci-fi story, but I thought that it was really, really funny. Next up is Don't Have a Cow, Mankind. This is the one about, like, the Krusty Burgers poisoning everyone. And this is another one that was really surprising to me. And I think that this was the one where it was like the comeback year. And I was like, oh, look, they're good again. The episodes are good again. And then, boom, they weren't. Next up is Fly vs. Fly. This is one that I'm kind of mixed about. I mean, this is probably one of the ones I would have put in the B tier if I could go back and change stuff. But it is still really funny. I liked Bart the whole episode. I thought it was a good twist on the movie and everything. Next up is Hungry Are the Damned. This is one that a lot of people say is like really simple, but I thought it was really funny. I really liked how the aliens were introduced, and I thought that it was really good, to be honest. It's one of the earliest ones, too, so it's like, you know, it's simple, but it's good. Next up is Dial D for Diddley. I loved this episode, you know, where Flanders is like Dexter and Homer's controlling him. I mean, that's such like an epic premise, and it's so much fun. I love seeing like people prank each other on The Simpsons and seeing Homer doing this to Ned. I mean, basically like pretending like he's God and, you know, making Ned going around killing people. It's so good. Next up is Unnormal Activity. Honestly, I don't remember a single thing about this other than its Paranormal Activity, the parody version. Next up is Toy Gory. I really liked this one, surprisingly. I thought that the parody song was hilarious. You know, the one where it's supposed to be like the Randy Newman song and everything, and I really liked how Bart got his due. I thought that was so funny how they turned him into a toy, and it was amazing. I loved this. I wish that they would do more ones like this, because this one was kind of like more dark, more and less sanitized than all the other modern ones. The next one is the Bart Zone. This is a really good, underrated episode. It's a classic. It parodies one of the best Twilight Zone episodes, which is one that I think is really good because it's like it all takes place in Ohio, at least the Twilight Zone one. And I loved how Homer was turned into a jack-in-the-box and everything. The thing that I think is gross, too, at the end when he gets turned into a donut, he's got the donut. Oh, wait, no, that's not this one. Okay, never mind. Next up is You Gotta Know When to Golem. This was another surprising one. I thought that this one was really underrated and really fun and clever. And, you know, the Golem, that's a lost series of films. They cannot find the original Golem movies. And, you know, that's like a really big part of the horror the horror world that is missing. You know, like the Golem movies. Like, I feel like the Golem should be like a classic horror series, and it is, but it's lost. Next up is Married to the Blob. This one was really funny. Homer turns into a big blob, and it was just simple but funny. Finally, we have an episode that, debatably, it should be in the S tier. Terror at 5 feet. 5.5 feet or whatever. This is another Twilight Zone episode parody, and I loved it. I thought that it was really funny and really creative too, parodying that episode, but on a school bus. You know, such a great idea and such an interesting twist on the episode. Now for the S tier. Scary Tales Can Come True. This is the only time The Simpsons ever did like fairy tales, and I thought that they did a damn good job. This is the top 10 too, so this is number 10. I loved it. I thought that it was hilarious. Next up is the Omega Man. This is one where, the Omega Man is not a very good movie. I've seen it. This is a great parody, though. It's very it's such an improvement on the movie. It's not even funny. Next up is The Terror of Tiny Toon. This is one that I think I'm giving a little bit of a pass to, because I think that the idea that they came up with like The Simpsons going into different TV shows was such a genius idea, and I was really glad that they did. It was so creative, and it was such an innovative idea to do that, and I really wish that they'd have done that again, because even though it was done for a very short period of time, it was so cool. And it was like something where I was like, okay, they need to do this again, because this is next level stuff. It reminded me of like Everyone Likes That Everywhere, Everything All at Once movie, overrated garbage. This is like the good version of that, almost. Next up is Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace. I thought that this was a hilarious parody of Nightmare on Elm Street. My favorite, it's a classic too. See, they don't make parodies like this anymore on The Simpsons. This is such a perfect parody, and they really don't do this anymore, though. They don't do it like this. They're like, okay, here's the parody. We're just going to tell the story as it was, basically, with a couple of jokes. The end. And this is like its own story. This is like its own thing. As I was saying, my favorite part is when Groundskeeper Willie becomes Freddy Krueger for the first time. The part where he gets set on fire, and then he sits at the PTO meeting, and they're all not paying attention to him, and they don't care that there's this guy, and he's literally burning in the corner. And you know what's really funny about that? Or what's really sad? They had something like that happen for real in New York. There was this woman, and she was set on fire by this illegal immigrant, and or I guess he was, I don't know, he shouldn't have been here, and he set her on fire, and nobody did anything about it. And it was like this horrific scene. People took videos of it instead of trying to help her. And it was so like bizarre, because I was like, this is exactly like this episode. And I also love the joke where Homer was talking about Smarch. Like that's not a real month. He said something about Smarch. Next up is Citizen King. This is the greatest political satire that The Simpsons has ever done. And it's so funny because they went from being this independent political show that was like, okay, both sides are trash. They went from that to being like total left side biased Simpsons. Calling, like, especially in that Pacific Rim episode, talking about like the right side and how the right side is so evil and everything. But it's like, back in this Citizen King segment, they were saying both sides were evil. And so I wonder what happened to that whole ideology. I wonder what happened there. See, that's the thing. You can tell that this show has completely changed. Next up is The Shining. This is a classic episode. I've probably seen this Treehouse of Horror the most for a number of reasons. Probably my favorite scene is when Homer is dragged out of the freezer by all the different monsters and slashers, because he just wants to sit in there eating. Because that's something that I thought about as a kid. I was like, you know what? He was going crazy throughout the hotel, like that big, scary hotel. It would just be a lot of fun to sit there in the walk-in, or not the freezer, but the storeroom, and just eat all that food. Next up is Time and Punishment. I think that this segment is severely underrated. I think it's a genius episode. I think it's creepy. The part where Flanders has taken over the world, basically, and he's forcing everyone to smile, giving them all lobotomies. I thought that was such a genius idea. I love the part where Homer's in the new reality, and he's like, "Can someone pass me a donut?" And then Marge is like, "Donut? What's a donut?" And he's like, "Don't!" And then he's like, "Fuck that shit." You know, like, there's just, this is an incredible, incredible segment. And it's funny because they tried to do this segment again in the future, but with Lisa. And it was a big pile of garbage segment. And it just showed how bad the writers have gotten. And but this was just incredible, masterful television. Number 3 is The Thing and I. This is one where I think it's a great horror episode. It's very creepy. It really creeped me out as a kid. But I would also say, I think that the idea of Hugo and Bart is the greatest thing that ever happened to Bart. It's such a fantastic idea of Bart having a good twin and Bart is the evil twin. I really wish that Hugo was still in the show. That's how much I loved this episode. Number 2 is The Devil and Homer Simpson. You know, it's really funny because probably one of my biggest channel's fans, she did not know that this was based off of a movie called The Devil and Daniel Webster. And it's funny because the episode is so good that it works without you knowing that. It works that well. It's such a masterpiece of an episode. The Forbidden Donut thing is hilarious. But the one thing I'll say is the thing at the end where Homer's head has become a donut. I think it's really gross. I think it's really creepy and gross and disgusting. He's eating himself. I had this one nightmare as a kid. And I was in this insane asylum. And I saw a family member. And he opened up his shirt and he chopped open his stomach. And his stomach was a baked potato. And he started eating it. And it is the grossest dream I've ever had. And this was all in like a dark asylum with like all the lights off and everything. It was so gross. That's what this reminds me of. So, yeah. And my number 1 is Nightmare Cafeteria. This is the scariest segment by far. It is the number 1 like horror segment for me. And it's just the polar opposite of what they do nowadays on the Treehouse of Horror episodes. And I just think it is perfection. It is the best thing ever. They will never come close to this unless they start actually trying. My favorite part, and this episode used to scare the shit out of me too. I would get like a stomach ache when this episode would come on. And the part at the end where like they get put in the blender, it really, really freaked me out. But my favorite part is when it's the German food day and they're eating the Udu Braten and the principal comes over and he's dressed up in like this German costume and it's so weird and creepy but hilarious at the same time. Like it's amazing. So anyways, please like this video and comment. Tell me what your top 10 Treehouse of Horror segments are. And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest reviews and maybe the Simpsons videos. I don't know. I gotta be honest. I'm really turned off on the Simpsons after watching these modern Treehouse of Horror episodes. Really, really turned off. Like, so turned off that, like, you know what? I've still got my Treehouse of Horror DVD. I've got another DVD with all the classic Christmas episodes. That's all I need. I don't need to watch anything else, Simpsons related. I'll just pretend that The Simpsons stayed like that and didn't become what it has become now. Thank you very much. And so goodbye, everybody. See you soon.